The Beatles auditioned for a giant record label, and the label said no. It was New Year's Day, 1962. Four young men drove all night through snow, from Liverpool down to a cold London studio. They played 15 songs in about an hour, and the record man turned them flat down. He signed a different band that very same day. Why that band? Because they lived closer to the office. You have never once heard that other band's name. The Beatles went on to become the biggest act in history. The man who said no was not a fool. He was an expert, one of the best in Britain. And that is exactly why he could not see them. The expert who waved off your idea may be just as blind. This is expert blindness. In the next 11 minutes, I will show you the 3 moves to beat it, and the 1 move a proud expert hates the most. Let me take you back to that freezing morning. The band was young, broke, and hungry. Their van slid and shook on icy roads all night. They got lost and nearly missed the whole thing. Their manager was a quiet man named Brian Epstein. He ran a record shop back in Liverpool. He believed these 4 boys would be bigger than Elvis. People smiled politely and thought he was dreaming. For months, he had begged the London labels to listen. He wrote letters. He made calls. He was turned away. He was not a music man at all. He sold records. He did not make them. But he had heard the band play in a small club, and something in him simply would not let go. Finally, the biggest one in the country said yes. Decca Records would give them a real audition. They booked it for New Year's Day, while half of London slept off the party. The engineer showed up tired and slow. The room was freezing and the mood was flat. The Beatles hauled their gear inside and set up. They played 15 songs, one after another. Old covers, a few of their own, whatever was asked. They were nervous, and the takes came out rough. Then they packed up and drove the long way home. They thought they had done enough to win. They had no idea the answer was already decided. The label was leaning toward the safe choice, and they waited by the phone for weeks. Every day the call did not come felt longer. They were sure they had played well enough. They were sure this was their one big break. Stay with me. In 3 minutes, I will show you the exact trap that caught the expert. The call did not come, so Epstein went to them. He took the train back down to London. He sat across from a senior man at the label. He waited to hear that his boys were in. The answer, as Epstein later told it, was brutal. Guitar groups are on the way out, he was told. The Beatles have no future in show business. Sit with that sentence for a second. Guitar groups are on the way out. Said about the very band that would define guitar music. The label had picked another group from that same day. They were called Brian Poole and the Tremellos. A local London band, cheaper to bring in, easier to manage. They had a couple of hits, then slowly faded away. It was a safe, sensible, expert choice. And it became a joke that has lasted 60 years. The label that could sign the future picked the safe past. And the safe past was forgotten in a few short years. Here is the part that should stop you. The man at the label was not lazy or stupid. He knew the music business cold. He had years of real hits behind him, and that knowledge was the whole problem. He knew the rules of what sold right then. So he judged the Beatles by last year's charts. And by last year's charts, they did not fit. Their sound was rough and loud and new. It did not match the smooth hits of the day. The expert heard different and thought wrong. But different was the whole point. The world was about to want exactly that. This is the trap. We can call it expert blindness. An expert spends years mastering the rules of the game. But deep mastery makes you certain. And certainty makes you blind to a brand new game. The better you know the old map, the easier you miss the new road. It is not stupidity. It is the hidden price of being an expert. And it happens everywhere, over and over again. A giant camera company invented the digital camera, then buried it. They cannot believe that film would ever die. Years later, that company was gone. A famous phone maker laughed at the first touchscreen. They knew buttons. They knew them better than anyone. That is exactly why they missed the future. A movie studio passed on a little film about a boy wizard. Smart people, confident people, experts, all of them. And all of them blind to the obvious new thing. Notice the pattern hiding inside each story. The more they had won in the old world, the more they had to lose. So their own success quietly closed their eyes. The pattern never changes. Only the names do. And here is why this matters for you tonight. You have probably had an idea that someone smart waved away. Maybe you still carry the sting of that no. Maybe you decided they must have been right. But an expert's no is not always the truth. Sometimes it is just the old map talking. So what saved the Beatles from that no? Not luck. They had something far better than luck. Brian Epstein simply refused to accept the verdict. He kept knocking on door after door. He carried their tape all over London. Most experts heard it and gave a polite shrug. He was rejected again and again and again. Then one man offered them a small chance. His name was George Martin at a smaller label. He did not need to feel certain about them. He just handed them one session to prove it. He sat in the booth and listened closely. He did not hear last year's charts. He heard something fresh and a little strange. He was curious enough to find out more. Curiosity is the cure for expert blindness. The blind expert asks, does this fit the rules? The curious one asks, what if the rules are wrong? One question closes the door. The other opens it. George Martin asked the open one, and history turned. He bet a single afternoon, nothing more. That cheap little test went on to change music forever. Within 2 years, they had conquered the world. They had #1 songs on both sides of the ocean. Crowd screamed so loud you could not hear the music. The same guitar sound that was on the way out was now everywhere. One small yes had beaten a powerful no. So how do you beat expert blindness in your own life? When an expert dismisses your idea, run these 3 moves. Move 1. Split the map from the future. An expert knows what works right now. That is a map of today, and it is useful. But it is not a window into tomorrow. Trust them on what already is. Doubt them on what could still be. The Decca Man knew that day's charts by heart. He just could not see 1 year ahead. When someone says it will never work, ask a quiet question. Are you describing the past or guessing the future? Those are 2 very different things. One deserves your respect. The other deserves a test. Learn to hear the difference, and you gain a quiet power. Move 2. Watch the room, not the resume. The expert was never the real customer. He did not scream at the concerts. He did not line up to buy the records. The young fans did all of that. So go straight to the people the thing is for. Watch their faces, not the expert's title. A real reaction beats a fancy opinion every time. Your boss may hate your idea in the meeting. Go show it to the person who would actually use it. Their eyes will tell you more than his words. A bored expert and a lit-up user are not equal. One is judging. The other is wanting. Wanting is the signal that actually pays. Move 3. Make it cheap to be right. Do not try to argue the expert into belief. You will lose, and you'll waste months. Instead, build the smallest possible test. 1 session, 1 sample, 1 quiet weekend. Then let plain reality answer for you. George Martin did not bet his whole company. He bet 1 single afternoon and won everything. You do not need permission to run a small test. You just need the nerve to try it. Most people never test because a no feels safer. A no asks nothing of you. A test asks you to risk being wrong. But a small test also lets you be right. A tiny proof beats a long argument. Words can be denied. Results are much harder to ignore. Show, do not tell, and watch the room change. So here is your test for tonight. Think of 1 idea an expert shot down. A pitch, a project, a new way to do your job. Do not bury it just yet. Instead, ask yourself 3 honest questions. Is this person guessing at the future or describing the past? Who is this really for? And have I watched them? What is the smallest test I could run this week? Answer those 3, and you take your idea back. You stop letting one confident no end the whole story. The expert is not your judge. Reality is. And if you have been sitting on something for years, hear this. It is not too late to run the small test. The Beatles were rejected before they were loved. So is almost everyone you admire. A no from the past does not have to write your future. If this gave you one clear idea, Go ahead and subscribe. One model at a time, we get sharper. Next time, the man who painted the Mona Lisa. Leonardo da Vinci spent his whole life chasing one skill. Not painting, seeing. He called it sapere vedere, knowing how to truly see. Sharper thinking, one model at a time.